Richmond wins a bruising Dreamtime at the G Clash. Max King steers the Saints over the line, and the Cats get back on the winners list and end the Powers streak. Hello and welcome to the round so far, brought to you by Amy. I'm Riley Beveridge. I'm in the health and safety protocols at the moment, but joining me from AFL House is Kane Corns. Kane will get straight into it tonight at the MCG, where Richmond got over the line against Essendon in the Dreamtime at the G Clash.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. I mean, it was a more physical affair from the Bombers. They came out with an intent that we haven't seen for a while, but in the end, Richmond just had more method about the way that they moved the ball, and they were far more threatening inside their forward 50 than what the Bombers were. So you're seeing the score there to keep Essendon to 48 points is a really good performance. They've got a couple of injury concerns, which we'll get to two of their star players, but they're in really good form. They're well and truly entrenched in the top 8 now, and if they keep their full complement of star players on the park, then who knows how far they can go this year.
Dion Prestia was one of those players back on the park. He won the Yokin medal for best on ground. You mentioned Essendon. The effort and the intensity was there, but the system and the structure just wasn't still again.
No, it wasn't. They just struggled to defend the ground, and they're just so easy to move the ball against. So Richmond had 100 marks today. They had nearly 400 disposals, and they're usually a pretty low possession team, Richmond. But just look how easy this is. Now, they're just defensively, they break down. As soon as you shift the ball off the angle, you get the runners coming from behind, and then you find an enormous amount of space inside 50. They took 14 marks inside 50. As I said, they took 100 marks for the game and nearly 400 disposals, and this was reflective of Essendon's season. They have a defensive system that allows someone to drop a mark in the middle of the ground but still have time to butter up and then find an uncontested mark inside 50. So Ben Rutten said he was determined to be a defensive coach, and he would hang his hat on that 3 years ago when essentially he took over. They've been anything but that, and they're just far too easy to play against.
A couple of concerns on the injury front for the Tigers. Kane Lambert subbed out at three-quarter time with a recurrence of that hip problem that he's dealt with out of this season. Tom Lynch also come out of the game at three-quarter time with a hamstring problem. Essendon, they were challenged on the physicality front last week. We mentioned on the show last week about Dylan Shield and the verbal attack that Luke Parker gave him. They responded on that front tonight.
Yeah, look, they did, and they flew the flag, and I find it a bit amusing. I find it a little bit embarrassing, to be fair. Like, they said that they wouldn't respond to media commentary, but they absolutely did. So one of their former greats in Matthew Lloyd questions the physicality, and that's a talking point. And then you get issues like this with Redmond getting reported now. He'll have a case to answer for that hit on Dion Prestia. You're seeing this. We haven't seen this all year. So on the back of one criticism from a former player, you get this over-the-top, dramatic, in-your-face stuff that the opposition would be looking back and laughing at, because when the ball's there to be won, when they want to try and get the ball back off the opposition, there's no effort. So that was token tonight, I thought, and I found it somewhat embarrassing, and it had no influence whatsoever on the game.
We'll head to the Adelaide Oval, where St Kilda just got over the line against the Crows in a bit of a thriller. Max King was the star here. 6 marks, 6 kicks, 6 goals.
It's been a good week end for the forwards, hasn't it? I mean, Norton was terrific today. We'll get to that game in a moment. Charlie Curnow kicked 6 as well, but this was always going to be the issue for Adelaide. Like, you could see this writing on the wall as soon as the selected teams came out on Thursday. They had Murray, Duday, Dawson, Jordan Dawson and Hinge essentially playing on King, Marshall, Ryder and Membry. And Mason Wood there took a mark inside 50. So 14 marks inside 50. It felt as though in the last quarter, every time the ball went inside 50, someone was going to mark it. Now, he is an absolute gun. We know that. We've spoken about him a lot on this show, but 8 goals to 3 in the last quarter was where the damage was done. Adelaide were good. I mean, when they come with that intent and that physicality and they pressure around the midfield, they're a hard team to play against, particularly at home. But the selection of the tall defenders, that's something Matthew Nicks would have to reflect on and go, we got that horribly wrong. Why Billy Frampton wouldn't have played in that game is a mystery.
At the other end of the ground, Cal Wilkie, one of the best for the Saints. He played on Tex Walker for a lot of the night, had 19 disposals, 10 intercepts. He was on a rookie list 4 years ago.
It's an amazing story. Like, he's as good a one-on-one defender in the game right now. probably Jacob Wiedering, and then there's this guy, like his ability to actually play one-on-one, but then he plays team first as well, so if he needs to, he'll come off his opponent and he'll help out there. That's a critical stage of the game. They're only up by 4 points with 8 minutes to go, so goal-saving tackle there on Fogarty. He gets a hand in, he follows up, and he's a really good ball user, and he's quite composed and methodical with his ball use on the left foot. So he's absolutely in All-Australian form right now, and he did a number on Tex tonight.
We'll head to GMHBA Stadium, where Geelong got over the line against Port Adelaide, who had won 4 straight going into the game. It was all about this third quarter blitz from the Cats. They kicked 5 goals to 1, won 23 more possessions, 16 more contested possessions, 12 more inside 50s.
Yeah, they're 6-4 now, the Cats. They have been inconsistent. They haven't been able to get a run of multiple wins since round 3 and 4, so they've been up and down. I mean, Port Adelaide hadn't won this ground since 2007, so it was always going to be difficult. It was an ordinary game of footy. Let's be completely honest. There was a lot of stoppages. There was so many boundary throw-ins. Tyson Stengel kicked 3 once again. He's having an enormous year, and this was an enormous kick right on the stroke or after the three-quarter time siren. I wonder whether players should do that more. We're seeing more and more success with the player and how skillful they've become with the kick around the body. I wonder if that's the next evolution, that we'll see a few more torps, because he just did that easily, Jeremy Cameron. So they were a handful. I actually thought Port's defenders defended exceptionally well, but it was up the other end of the ground. Port's forwards couldn't get anything going. I didn't think they were competitive enough in the air and certainly on ground level. So as soon as the ball hit the deck, in Geelong's defensive 50, they just butted up and won ground ball after ground ball. So scrappy game. Chris Scott wouldn't mind. He got the better of Ken Hinkley in the coach's box, and Geelong sort of move on this really inconsistent season that they're producing.
I want to ask you about Port Adelaide's midfield, because they had 7 players start a centre bounce throughout the afternoon. And if you look here, there's a big discrepancy in the age profile. So Ollie Wine's the only player between the age of 24 and 33.
Yeah, it's a good pick-up by you. I mean, they were short 2 midfielders coming into the season, and it was an area that they just didn't address in the trade period, and that smacks you in the face, doesn't it? They're even trying to get Travis Boak to play more half-forward so you can get those younger names at the bottom of that graph there into the centre bounce, but at times they haven't been able to sustain the effort, so Boak's been forced to go in there. They need to address it in the trade period. So I don't know whether it's a Tim Taranto, I don't know whether it's Josh Dunkley. They're not ideally suited for what Port Adelaide need. They probably need a bit more outside run and ball use. But I look at what Carlton did with Hewitt and Chera coming in that age bracket that you're talking about, and the impact that has had, to the point where Sam Walsh had 30 votes in the Brownlow last year, and he's not even playing on ball. Like, he's playing half forward, he's playing wing, he's going behind the ball. That's how many midfielders they've got at their disposal, and you get the improvement from Kennedy, and as a result, Cripps improves. So Port Adelaide just got to address that in the trade period. They made a mistake by not doing it, and it's costing them, and it certainly cost them today. They were smashed around the ball.
We'll head to Ballarat now, where the Bulldogs just got over the line against a pretty gallant Gold Coast, and it was down to Ed Richards Kane, a former first-round pick who's had a pretty underrated season so far. Yeah,
he was amazing today. It's the best game I've seen him play now. Only 5 games last year. Had that broken ankle which interrupted his season. He had 20 touches and only one of them was ineffective. 14 intercepts that he had for the game. 4 contested marks, high metres gameplay, and a good ball user. So, I mean, they tried him early days in his career as more the half forward, but seems to really have found his spot behind the ball, and I just thought he was the best player on the ground today by a fair way with his impact and influence on it. So I'm looking forward to what he can do. Still 22 years of age and with a bright future, but he was really influential for the Dogs today.
And our Saturday star was a man at the other end. He kicked just 2 goals in 5 games before today, but this Joel Jeffrey from the Gold Coast Suns, he comes into the side and kicks 5 goals from 10 disposals and 5 marks.
10 kicks, 5 goals, 5 marks. Nearly a triple-double for him. I must admit, I didn't know a lot about him, but it's hard not to take notice when he's doing things like this. He's got some flair about him, a really good size, 192 centimetres, still quite skinny, so he'll definitely develop. But what he was able to do, like to stand up in the tackle and his ability to finish, and the enthusiasm and energy that he brought to a reasonably dour game today. I'm looking forward to what he can do, because his highlights reel is going to be something else.
bit of a worry for the Suns with Rory Thompson. His third game back, he'd missed almost 4 years with a ruptured ACL to his left knee, then his right knee. He hurts his knee again and is subbed out of this one, so hoping for the best. We will get to Marvel Stadium and Friday night footy now, where the Blues got the job done against the Swans. Now, going into this clash, Kane, I want you to take a look at Carlton's injury list, because they had 10 players on this injury list, and a lot of them key position players that actually played in that round 1 game against Richmond. Mitch McGovern, Harry Mackay, Mark Pitney, Oscar McDonald. So they were without a lot of key players, and the burden fell to Jacob Wiedering down back and Charlie Curnow up forward. But it was Jacob Wiedering who did the majority of the damage for the Blues down back. He held Buddy Franklin throughout the night in a really admirable performance.
Spoke about Wilkie, didn't we? But this guy is the best one-on-one defender. I mean, we've touched on this show throughout the year, defenders who want to guard space and don't want to plant anyone, and that looks great when it works, but often you get found out, as Darcy Moore and Jeremy Howe have at times this year. But he's a genuine one-on-one defender who is very calm and not afraid to just beat his man one-on-one like that. I mean, that's a skill. And in an era where umpires are paying free kicks for very soft indiscretions for defenders against forwards, he's got a good art of just remaining calm like that, getting really good positioning. He's so strong that he's impossible to move. So they absorbed 37 entries to 16 in the second half, the Blues, 37. And 18 of those came in the last quarter. And a key reason why they held on and kept Sydney to 1 goal, despite the 18 entries, was that man there. I thought he was just enormous.
I found it fascinating what Carlton did in the ruck. Since Mark Pitney has gone down with injury, they're averaging about 20 hit-outs less per game, but winning the clearances by around 6 or 7 per game. Went with DeConing, Silvani and Cripps for the majority of the time on Friday night, but won the clearance battle. Yeah,
I've got a lot of respect for anyone who goes in the centre bounce and contests those ruck duels, let alone a player of Jack Silvani's size. So what him in the centre bounce and then Cripps has been doing around the ground, as we're seeing here, has been phenomenal. And then credit to the mids and the small forwards who come up to the stoppage for their ability to fight and scrap. And I just thought Sydney play Hickey and Laddams and lose the hit-outs. I think it was by 7. They'll never play Laddams and Hickey again together in the same side for the rest of the year. I guarantee you that. They'll go back to a Reid or a McLean like they've done in the past, and they'll play one ruck, because they were beaten badly in an area that they should have dominated the game. And then one of them was forward. In the last quarter, it was Laddams, and you couldn't hide him. He just wasn't having an influence defensively. So credit to Carlton and their mids for the way they went about that and how structured and disciplined they were when those two were in the ruck.
We'll stay at Marvel Stadium on Saturday now, where Melbourne, who's rebranded as Narm throughout the 2 weeks of Sir Doug Nicholls' round, beat North Melbourne. The Kangaroos took it to them. They were within 6 points midway through the third quarter.
They did take it to them physically, and they were pretty good, albeit you look at the numbers and they were smashed, like in pretty much every area. You'll see Petrarca getting off Taron Thomas there. They had a couple of lapses around stoppage, and then Melbourne just put the foot down, as we know that they can. As you said, North had it back to 6 points midway through the third. Melbourne kicked 6 goals straight to finish the game, and it wasn't one of their best performances, but they did keep North Melbourne to 34 inside 50s, like from 100 marks. So North took 111 marks, and this is a sort of a tactic that some teams are trying to do against Melbourne. Port Adelaide did something similar. But they're just happy to say, you can have your marks, you can chip sideways, you can go slow, you can kick it long down the line. That's okay. We'll just give us extra time to set up behind the ball. And Lever was pretty good. May was pretty good again. And, when they can flick the switch, not many teams, if any, have been able to go with them this year.
The D's have now won 17 straight games. We're edging ever closer to a bit of history. The longest ever AFL, VFL winning streaks, Geelong on 23 from the 1950s. 6 to go.
Yeah, they might get there. I haven't studied what their draw and their fixture looks like in the next 6 weeks, but I mean, it's just maintaining the rage, isn't it? And the determination to do something unbelievable. I think at some point they're going to slip up. I can't see a way that they're going to get to sort of 23, 24 consecutive wins and go through undefeated, because they don't blow you away. I mean, they do flick a switch and they can score goals quickly, but they don't kick massive scores. So they do give you a chance to hang in, and someone like a Brisbane or even we'll get them at some point this year. But an incredible team, and what a turnaround in the space of 2 years. They're looking indestructible at the moment.
I think they've got 4 top 8 sides in those next 6 games. All right, we'll head to the rest of the round now. It's going to be an interesting Sunday of footy. GWS takes on West Coast. Hawthorn plays Brisbane
and Freo meets Collingwood's probably the match of the day.
Yeah, not a very exciting Sunday of football, is it? We'll wait and see what the first two games bring, and then you would expect Fremantle bounce back pretty strongly after an ordinary performance against Gold Coast last week. They're playing at home against the Collingwood side who's struggling. So they should get back on the right side of the winners' ledger. And the first two games, who knows? I mean, Giants have mass changes. Could West Coast actually upset them and get a win? You wouldn't put it past them.
And one more thing now, we did say it was Sir Doug Nicholls' round, kicked off this weekend. These were great scenes at the MCG before the Dreamtime of the G ceremony. Marlian Pickett and Matty Parker not involved for Richmond on the night. They were involved in this ceremony. This is great to see.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was so moving. And this particularly struck me. I mean, they rehearsed this during the week and they said that they made some mistakes with it, but they nailed it tonight. So I think I haven't seen the whole group join in like this before, and I think this is just going to be the staple of this amazing Dreamtime at the G game and something that we will now see ongoing. So well done to Richmond for their, I guess, initiative to do that, and well done for the players for getting involved. It was as good as I've seen.
Well, Kane, thanks for being with me tonight. Hopefully I'm back in the studio with you
Get well,
next week.
mate. Get well. We need you back.
All right, I'll see you then.